let's see. This one is based on the Cain and Abel story. It is not two people, obviously. It is based on a dream that I had
Hmm.
um, about two groups of uh, wolves, and one side was red, the other was blue. This was just before um, the 2016 election in the U.S., and I had this dream about it was very like an impersonal kind of dream, and the way that that kind of relates to the story of Cain and Abel, at least for me, it was such a weird time. That time, like 2015, 2016, it was so weird.
It's
Um,
been weird. It's been a weird time, like, since then too. It's all been
since
weird, yeah.
then. Right, but that's when it got like, oh, it's like everything started. So what I kind of identified at that time that made sense to me was there was this emergence of the shadow, like in Jungian
Mhm.
psychology, there's the idea of the shadow, and collectively, that seems to be what was happening, and it was happening in all these different facets and all these different ways. So there was like the Pepe memes, if you guys remember, the
Yeah.
Pepe memes, which is like there's the trickster, right? So in these times of transition, the trickster comes out, and it's all ridiculous and paradoxical and absurd. Um, but
The
there's
troll.
also so, like, everything became extremely polarized right around then, and that was when Trump came up, Jordan Peterson came up, Pajot following shortly after, and they were like, um, I don't know, there was a lot of the trans stuff coming up, which is again like this masculine, feminine, paradoxical kind of stuff. So it all kind of came together, and the idea of the story of Cain and Abel is the hostile brothers. It's this archetypal story. It's recurring all over the place, and they're kind of in the Bible, the first one, but in a way, they're also again this unfolding of this fractal masculine feminine thing. If you get into the story, Cain is very much associated with the earth. He's the first. He's what is the other thing? He's a farmer, I believe, and Abel is a shepherd, which is has this more spiritual role
I think
in
Cain
the
was, like, more of a hunter. I'm pretty
yeah.
I
Well,
wanna
I think he was a farmer, so he's
farmer?
attached to the
Okay.
earth,
Oh,
right? Like it's
I'm mixing up Esau and Jacob, actually. You're right.
yeah. But
Very
that again
cool.
is the same hostile brothers motif, so the older brother being like Esau, I think means red, somebody told me, I wanna say,
Mm,
or he was described as being red. So there's this recurring thing about the first being red and then the second or the younger brother being, kind of this more spiritually inclined kind of thing for
mm.
whatever reason. There's probably, like, very complicated reasons that I don't understand going on there, but um, yeah, so it's kind of the story of Cain and Abel, but at the same time, it was also this moment that was actually happening at that when I made it. I think I ended up making it in 2018 or maybe 17, but the ideas had been gestating, like, noticing these patterns and everything come up. And um, yeah, the red and the blue again, I was just really getting into that and going with that theme again. So I mean, yeah, all those things came up at that time, and I feel like Cain is also like this shadow. So Um, it was just very, like, relevant at the time with all of those things going on.
I don't remember if we recorded about this, but when we spoke about the dragons before, there's so the dragons in the corners for those listening. There's like blue in them as well. Is there a specific reason for that?
Yeah, I just wanted to get a mix of red and blue for the edges because if you have these dragons on the edge, they're kinda like chaos monsters, and there's an idea about opposites, like, they can, um I don't know who said it or where this came from, but there's the idea about opposites coming together in love or enmity.
Yeah.
Not even sure if I'm saying that right, but love and hate, right? They like there's love and strife, so things can come together or they can be pulled apart in conflict, but it's either way, it's this locking together of opposites.
Yeah.
Uh, so that theme is just kind of playing out in the whole thing, I guess. I just wanted to repeat that everywhere because I think it's the most fundamental thing. And
Yeah.
obviously, Cain and Abel are, he murders his brother, so it's a conflict, but um, it's a like the little dragons almost look like they're kissing, which I kind of like. Um, So it's just kind of a little play on that idea.
So much of your art is fundamental, right? You just said the word fundamental, and I feel like that, balance and polarities. It seems to me like when I first started trying to figure out like what the hell is going on in this whole world, and like like the beginning of my existential crisis, and the deep dives that I did after that, trying to figure out like, okay, what does this all mean? The three, perhaps the first thing that actually really stood out to me was like balance. I felt like you couldn't understand anything if you weren't able to understand the importance of balance. And it felt to me that the idea of balance was like the most fundamental idea, and that, there's a reason that the yin yang symbol, I believe, is like the oldest recorded symbol that we have, that has like maintained itself over time, and so it's like that's like foundational, and then Genesis is like the oldest stories, if I could use such a word, that we have recorded as well, and which means that it's, so your work is so fundamental. This is, Genesis creation is perhaps like the most fundamental of the fundamental, but then this is the first relational story between two regular human beings that exists, two not, human-made human beings, so to speak. And I feel like this is like it seems to me that this is like the fundamental moral conflict, in that like it's the battle of resentment and jealousy and bitterness, and the growth of bitterness and what that turns into, and I feel like that's something that you can understand, but it's like a spiritual battle that you have to engage in, like day to day, week to week, month to month, like on every time frame. You always have to be aware of like, okay, well, I feel like learning to engage with my resentment was one of the most important things that, like a psychological and in almost like I don't know. So I feel like I learned this sort of through like a meditation practice as well, of like, I'm just noticing my emotions broadly. When you notice resentment come up, it's like, what's going on there? Is there something I need to do? Is there something I need to say? Do I feel like I'm being taken advantage of? Am I being unreasonable? Like, am I just expecting too much out of somebody? Like, would it be fair for them to expect the same from me if the roles were reversed? That sort of thing. I feel like that, I don't know. It seems like perhaps the reason that it is the first story is that it's like, it seems to me to be one of the most fundamental psychological / spiritual / like things that you need to be aware of perpetually.
Yeah. I'd like to say something about that, because I just listened to the chapter on Cain and Abel in Jordan's new book, and he describes this battle as well. He says that when Cain kills Abel, it's fratricide, meaning that he killed his brother, but it's also deicide, in the sense that it's a fight against God from Cain's side. Like, he almost tries to deny God, in the sense that he denies the goodness of reality, and he shakes his fist at him, and he kills his brother in protest to it. And even more than that, that travels down to his descendants, like drastically so. And yeah, I think everyone has Cain inside of him, and Abel as well.
It's the slaying of the ideal. Can you guys? Oh, frick, we're frozen. The slaying of the ideal. I feel like that's a great thing. Not a great thing, but a significant thing that I'm noticing in the culture as well, is that like that resentment of like sort of like hating what is good to some degree, and maybe that's like too deep of a reading into it, but it seems to me like there's a lot of the destruction of the ideal. This is a crazy aside to pull in here, but I'm going to do it. There's this girl that people have been talking about on X the past couple of days, who went and had sex with 100 men in a day. It was some sort of like, have you guys seen this? Have you guys seen this at all? Well, Lucas is frozen. So, but yeah, it's just, she was like, I'm going to like sleep with 100 men in a day.
Yeah.
That's ambitious. That's crazy.
Yeah. It was all organized. And and then you see her after, and she's like shattered, and
Yeah.
she was doing this whole thing, and she was all like laissez, like it's no big deal, whatever, and you see her after, and she's like a whatever, porn star of some, it's what she does kind of thing. And she comes out and she's talking about it, and she's like crying, and she's like, yeah, I wouldn't recommend it for everyone, and I'm sitting there like, I feel like it's like, part of me is like, yeah, duh, like, maybe like almost, all of me is thinking like, duh, of course, but then I'm
Yeah.
sitting there thinking like, okay, well, so what's going on here? Like why would somebody be driven to do something like this? And the two things that it seemed to me was like, it seemed to me to be in some ways it seemed to me to be in some ways like, I will like slay the ideal personally, like I will, if you I don't like that people have told me like how I should behave, and so if you present me with an image of the ideal, I'll like try and do the opposite to my full extent to some degree, and then I also thought, well, this is maybe less relevant to this, but the psychologist to me was like, man, maybe she just really hates her dad, basically,
Mm.
and wants to like cause pain there to some degree, or show that like I can do what I want, nobody controls me, kind of thing. Like I kind of read some of that into it, but and who knows exactly what it is for her, but she
Yeah.
came out of it and it was just like shattered. It's like, yeah, it's like you enter into the most like vulnerable soul bonding type of things in a day. Lost me. I'm back. I don't know if you lost me. Um, and yeah, I don't know. That just made me think of that.
Can you hear me still? I'm frozen, but can you hear
Yeah,
me?
your video's
Yeah.
frozen, but we
Yeah,
traded in.
I can't see any of you, but I will respond to it.
Mhm.
I did see like the 40 seconds of her when she came out of it and she was crying and everything.
Mhm.
And well, I heard she wants to do 1,000 later on, which is
So much talking
interesting.
for man.
That
Um,
doesn't seem even healthy, like, just, like, in
Oh,
a
man.
aside from all morality or any other question, like, what do
yeah,
you like,
It's
that's
no,
ins
it's pretty crazy. But I see it as a manifestation of, or at least it's a playing out of, so you have different ideologies about, well, let's say sexuality in this regard. And what Piaget often does is he takes them to the extreme. And this is taking the idea of do whatever you want sexually, no consequences, to its extreme. And then you really start to uncover its fruits. So the fruits of an idea.
Mhm.
And in this case, that is like rotten to the core. And it's, I think, lamentable for her. But I mean, the fact that these men also participate in this, I think it's really it's a sad thing.